Namaste, welcome to the Advaita channel. Very happy to be here to be sharing from Rupert Spira, The Transparency of Things, which are beautiful contemplations into the nature of direct experience. Helping us to see through some of the assumptions that constrain our experience. So I had the YouTube window open. So there was me speaking twice. So welcome to Priya, Bhagavati, and Chrissy. Namaste. Lovely to have you here. And if you want to comment, then as I've said in chat, you need to sign in. So I always start with reading the summary. Om Sadhguru Mujiji Ki Jai. Sadhguru Anantaji Ki Jai. The purpose of Rupert Spira's book is to look clearly and simply at the nature of experience without any attempt to change it. A series of contemplations leads us gently but directly to see that our essential nature is neither a body nor a mind. It is the conscious presence that is aware of this current experience. As such, it is nothing that can be experienced as an object, and yet it is undeniably present. However, these contemplations go much further than this. As we take our stand knowingly as this conscious presence that we always already are, and reconsider the objects of the body, mind, and world, we find that they do not simply appear to this presence, they appear within it. And further exploration reveals that they do not simply appear within this presence, but as this presence. Finally, we are led to see that it is, in fact, this very presence itself that takes the shape of our experience from moment to moment, whilst always remaining only itself. We see that our experience is and has only ever been one seamless totality, with no separate entities, objects, or parts anywhere to be found. So there's various, it's broken up into small sections, and there's breaks where there'll be some silence to contemplate, to allow this to digest within us, to just be here as this conscious presence, knowingly. the true dreamer. Experience can be looked at in two ways. One is from the point of view of consciousness, and the other, which is more common, is from the point of view of the apparent separate entity that consciousness, from time to time, believes and feels itself to be. To understand how the homogeneous unity of consciousness is apparently fragmented into separate entities, existing in space and time, we can look at the three states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. What are we before we are a body and a mind? Before the body and the mind appeared? Do we cease to exist when the body and the mind cease to appear? And when the body and the mind appear, do we cease to be that which we are before they appeared? In this moment there is consciousness and there are appearances. That is, there are these words and whatever else is appearing in this moment. And there is consciousness, that to which, in which, and ultimately as which they appear. The appearances are coming and going all the time. Imagine that one by one the appearances disappear and are replaced less and less frequently by new ones, until a time comes when there are no appearances at all. What remains? Simply the consciousness that was present as the witness of each of the appearances as they appeared. It is like removing objects from a room one by one, until only the space of the room remains. This is the process that is enacted when we fall asleep, when we pass from the waking state to the dream state, and from the dream state to deep sleep. We say, when we fall asleep. However, there is in fact no entity that passes from the waking state to the dream state, and from the dream state to deep sleep. Do we have the experience of someone who is asleep in deep sleep? No. Do we have an experience of someone who is present as the dreamer of the dream, of someone having a dream? No. That someone appears in the dream, not as the dreamer. That someone is the subject of the story that appears in the dream, but not the true subject of the dream. It is not the true dreamer. That someone appears as one of the characters in the dream, just like all the other characters. The apparent subject in the dream is in fact one of many objects that appear in the dream. These objects appear to the dreamer. These objects appear to the true dreamer, consciousness, in which the dream takes place. As soon as we wake up, we realize that the apparent subject in the dream was in fact part of the story. It was an object of the true dreamer, consciousness. We realize that the apparent subject in the dream was an illusory subject. However, on waking, we immediately and inadvertently fall into another illusion. We take the subject of the story in the waking state, the body-mind, the separate entity, the doer, the feeler, the thinker, the knower, to be the true subject of the waking state, without realizing that it is in fact an object of the true subject, consciousness. The difference between the dream and waking states is that in the dream state, the apparent subject is made only of thoughts and images, whereas in the waking state it is made of sensations and perceptions as well. However, sensing and perceiving are functions of mind, in the same way that thinking and imagining are functions of mind. The substance of sensing and perceiving, as well as that of thinking and imagining, is mind, and in that sense there is very little difference between the body-mind that appears in the dream state and the body-mind that appears in the waking state. In the first analysis, they are both projections of mind, both made out of mind. In the final analysis, the body-mind that has previously been understood to consist of mind is further reduced in understanding and is now realized to be a projection of consciousness, to be made out of consciousness. The thoughts and images of the dream state and the thoughts, images, sensations and perceptions of the waking state appear within consciousness, but do not affect it in any way. How could they? They are made out of it. One of the thoughts that appear within consciousness is that of an individual person. This individual person is conceived in many different forms: the experiencer, the doer, the thinker, the enjoyer, the creator, the knower, the sufferer, of all the other objects that appear. These are the disguises in which the separate entity appears, each one validating and substantiating its apparent existence, like a con man with several identities. Upon waking from the dream, we discover that the individual person that seemed to be the experiencer of the dream was in fact experienced within the dream. However, upon waking, we transfer the status of experiencer from the individual person who seems to be present in the dream to the individual person who now seems to be present in the waking state. In this way, we repeat the mistake and fail to take advantage of the dream experience, which enables us to see that the individual person is in fact an image and a thought in consciousness, both in the dream and in the waking state. It is for this reason that the waking state is sometimes referred to as the waking dream. The appearance of the separate entity in the waking state is essentially the same as that in the dream state. In both cases, it has no reality of its own. In both cases, its reality is consciousness. Namaste, Nikhil. I always worry whether I pronounce your name right. I hope it's right. Thanks, Bhagavati. I love listening to Rupert. I love reading Rupert. His teaching is very, very clear. So what was just coming to me during that part of the reading was that there's all this imagining taking place and projection about myself or ourselves as a person going to do this or having done that, and replaying things. And to make this a little bit more sort of succinct, is that's what the this section is talking about here. that there's actually no difference between the imagining in the waking state and the dreaming of myself as person subject in the dreaming state. And the true subject is this ever-present, unbounded consciousness in which that whole dreaming and imagining, even myself as this person limited to the appearance of body and a collection of thoughts, it's all taking place in and even as this presence of awareness, because that's its substance. You can't somehow isolate and extract the illuminating presence of this consciousness or awareness from the appearance that's taking place. It's just one whole. Even this duality of experiencer, a self-experiencer, in relation to the experience, that also is an idea, what Rupert refers to as a fundamental presumption of our world culture, that there are two things: myself, the experiencer, in relation to the outside world of objects that is experienced. To understand the illusion of the waking state, we can take the point of view of the dream state. To understand the illusion of the dream state, we can take the point of view of deep sleep. And to understand the illusion of deep sleep, we take the point of view of consciousness. That is why the transitions from the waking state to the dream state, and from the dream state to deep sleep, and vice versa, are considered in some spiritual traditions to be such significant opportunities for awakening. In these transitions, that which is illusory in each state is laid bare. And by the same token, that which is real in each state, that which does not disappear during the transition, is revealed. At no stage in this process has the essential nature of the body-mind actually changed. It never becomes anything other than what it always is. That is, presence, consciousness. There is no body who passes through any stages. There is simply a flow of thoughts, images, sensations, and perceptions, all appearing and disappearing in changeless presence. However, our interpretation of the nature of the body-mind may change, and this new interpretation deeply conditions the way it is experienced, because the body-mind, and the world for that matter, are experienced in accordance with our understanding. Our experience and its interpretation are co-created within consciousness. Consciousness sometimes identifies itself with or imagines itself to be one of the images that it creates within itself during the dreaming or waking state. In this way, it imagines itself to be a limited entity, a separate person. However, at no point does it actually become a limited entity or a separate person. It just imagines itself to be so. And because it imagines this to be so, it seems to experience itself as such. Consciousness feels that this is the case and seems to experience that it is so, simply because it is the one which creates both the idea that it is separate and the apparent experience of being separate. It creates ideas and images as well as sensations and perceptions, and therefore it has the ability to create them consistent with one another. Thus, consciousness creates within itself the appearance of a separate entity that lives and moves in a separate and independent world, with all the subsequent thoughts, feelings, and sensations that are attendant upon this belief. Consciousness believes itself to be that entity and creates experiences within itself that conform to and confirm this belief. Nothing imposes this activity, this veiling, imagining activity on consciousness. There is nothing outside consciousness, so what could there be that imposes this activity? This veiling activity, this imagining myself to be a limited entity, is consciousness' own activity, its own creativity. Consciousness is free at every moment to withdraw this projection and to experience itself as it truly is, free, unlimited, self-luminous, ever present. and by the same token, it is free to create a world that is consistent with this understanding. Namaste, Jerome. Lovely to have you here. We normally consider that the waking state is the most real and normal state, that the dream state is a transitional distortion of the waking state, and that deep sleep is a temporary abyss between states. We also consider that the person, the individual entity, transitions or travels from one state to another and remains at rest in deep sleep. From the point of view of the waking state, deep sleep seems to last for a period of time, and for that reason it is considered to be a state. A state lasts for a period of time. It begins and ends. We have already seen that there are no objects present in deep sleep, and therefore no time. So deep sleep cannot be said to last for a period of time, and therefore cannot be said to be a state. In deep sleep, consciousness is simply present. It never moves from that place, in brackets, quotation marks. There is nobody who is asleep there, in quotation marks. There is nobody who wakes up or who transitions from one state to another. Consciousness is simply present, experiencing its own unmanifest, ever-present reality. The deep sleep state, which is conceived to last a certain amount of time, seems to come and go. However, deep sleep itself is always present. Whatever is present in deep sleep is equally present in the dreaming and waking states. Deep sleep takes the shape of the dreaming and waking states and is their substance, their underlying reality. Imagine the first experience that ever appeared to us as a newborn infant, or even before that, the sensations and perceptions that appeared to us in the womb. Were we not present as consciousness before and during that first experience? Must we not have already been present in order to be able to experience that first experience? And has our life since then not simply been a succession of appearances, all appearing to this consciousness that we are? And why not go back further than our first experience in the womb? Could it be that whatever experience the first appearance that ever occurred was in fact this very consciousness that is experiencing these words right now? Why not? There is no evidence to suggest that it is not the case, and nor is there any evidence to suggest that its opposite, the case for a separate personal consciousness, is true. In most cases, we presume that consciousness is limited and personal. Why not give the possibility of consciousness being universal and unlimited an opportunity? If there is only one universal consciousness that is the reality of all things, then it must already be the case. All that is needed is to align our thoughts, feelings, and activities with this possibility, and it will be confirmed as such in our actual experience. The fact that we do not remember this first appearance is not a proof that we as consciousness were not present there. After all, we do not remember being present as consciousness to witness whatever it was that we were experiencing exactly 5 days or 5 years ago. And yet we have no doubt that at that time, we, this witnessing consciousness, were the same witnessing consciousness that is present now, experiencing this current situation. And before that very first experience, was not consciousness simply present, simply itself, experiencing itself, because experiencing is its nature? Was it not knowing itself then as it knows itself now, because knowing is its nature? Was consciousness not simply present then, self-luminous, self-evident, self-knowing? And as we have no experience of consciousness disappearing, appearing, or changing, what is there to suggest that the consciousness that is present now is not exactly the same consciousness that was present then? In fact, was that then not this very now? And was that there not this very here? Of course, it does not make sense to say before that first experience, because there were, by definition, no objects present then or there, and without objects there is no time or space. The primordial space of consciousness that was present before the appearance of our first experience is a timeless, placeless place. It was not present then and there. It is present here and now. It is always here and now. Not here, a place, and now, a time, but rather here and now. This timeless placelessness, this placeless timelessness. That first experience that took place all those billions of years ago took place here and now in exactly the same presence that is seeing these words. Time and space appear within it. It does not appear within time and space. What happened to this primordial space of consciousness when the first object, first experience appeared? Did anything happen to it? Did we ever experience its appearance or disappearance? Is it possible to conceive of something that was present before it, which was not itself consciousness? And is this primordial space of consciousness that was present to witness the first experience we ever had or that ever was, not exactly the same empty space of consciousness that is present during deep sleep? Is it not present now? Will it change when the last object leaves it on death? Does it change or disappear when the first image of a dream appears in it on making the transition from deep sleep to the dream state? In each case, consciousness always simply remains as it is. Reality is one solid, seamless, indivisible substance made out of luminosity, transparency, knowingness, beingness. In deep sleep, consciousness abides in and as itself. The entire universe and all the universes are enfolded within it, ready to take shape at any moment, but as yet unmanifest. With the appearance of the first image or thought, the dream state begins. Consciousness takes the shape of these first images and thoughts. It becomes these images and thoughts, and yet at the same time remains itself. It expresses itself and witnesses itself simultaneously in and as these thought images and thoughts. With the appearance of these images and thoughts, the illusion of time is created, but the illusion of space is still not present. It is the appearance of sensations and perceptions that affect the transition from the dream state to the waking state. And with the appearance of sensations and perceptions comes the illusion of space. It is true that an image of space appears in the dream state, but on waking we realize that the dream actually took place only in time, not in space. At no stage in this process does consciousness become anything other than what it always already is. At no stage in this process does anything appear outside consciousness or separate from consciousness. In the dream state, consciousness takes the shape of thoughts and images, and at this moment gives birth to the dream world, which contains the dimension of time. It is a mono-dimensional world. In fact, there is never any actual experience of time and space themselves. With the birth of the mind, that is, with the appearance of thinking and imagining within consciousness, the illusion of time is imposed on reality. And with the birth of the world, that is, with the appearance of sensing and perceiving, the illusion of space is imposed on reality. Divested of mind and senses, divested of name and form, the apparent continuum of time and space is revealed to be what in fact it always is, the ever-presence of consciousness. In the waking state, consciousness takes the shape of sensations and perceptions. In the waking state, consciousness takes the shape of sensations and perceptions, as well as thoughts and images, and at this moment gives birth to the waking world, which contains the dimensions of space as well as that of time. It is a four-dimensional world. Consciousness projects the dream world within itself through the functions of thinking and imagining. consciousness projects the waking world within itself through the functions of sensing and perceiving, as well as thinking and imagining. In deep sleep, there is no projection and therefore no time or space. There is no world. There is simply presence, and that presence is this presence. Thanks, Priya. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, everyone. Nikhil, Bhagavati, Chrissy, anybody else that's been joining today to listen to these words and allow them to point to this direct experience of ourselves as the presence, conscious presence.